Hi, and welcome to another Home Tech. I'm Seth Johnson, joined as always by Jason Griffin. Jason, how's it going, man?
It's going great, Seth. Still no box.
Do you have it? You're just not getting texts from me during the week. Is it there yet?
Yeah, I have a funny story though. I was working out of my home office today. Been a little bit under the weather again, and also had like a big snowstorm here, so it was kind of a good day to work from home. And later in the day, a UPS truck pulled up outside, and I have to admit, I got a little excited. I could see him right out my office window, and I thought maybe it's here, and we might have it in time for tonight's show. Alas, my hopes were dashed, and it was not it. And I think it's tracking for delivery in time for next week's episode.
Yeah, I had some problems with writing the Control4 driver for it. So,
well, for anyone who might not know, this is a mystery, I guess, gift or project that Seth has been working on.
Invention, Jason.
A revolutionary product. Going to be the next big thing that Seth has sent to me. And we're going to do a live kind of on-air unboxing of that as soon as I get it. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to kind of sharing with everyone what it is, because I really have no idea. Couldn't even hazard a guess.
It'll change your life. I guarantee it will change your life.
Awesome. So, well, this is a great episode. We're excited to share. We have an interview with Kris Gamble of Live Install, and anyone who's not familiar with Live Install, it's a great kind of community that Kris has started up, sort of centered around a Twitter hashtag, and took off and kind of grew from there. And we'll get into more of that during the interview. Be sure you stay tuned for that. And we're also looking forward to having Kris on. He's going to join us in the future, kind of moving forward on a series of appearances. We're going to have him join us periodically to just kind of check in on the Live Install community and what's going on with home technology over in the UK. So we really look forward to sharing more of those conversations in the future.
Yeah, there's always really cool product that's being announced over there. In our conversation, Kris talks about a couple of things that sound that actually go to the websites look really cool. So I'm sure we'll talk about those a little bit more later on. But I really love to see like the industrial design, different thought processes that goes into designing products for different areas of the world, because the needs of the customers in those areas of the world may not be exactly in line with what we have here in the States. So the products get designed just a hair differently, and they look a hair, they have different design aesthetics, but they also work and operate a little bit differently. So I'm always interested in checking that out. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun, and we've got ISE coming up here shortly, and so Kris is going to be doing some coverage out at ISE for us. So be sure to tune in a couple weeks when we have Kris on again, and we're going to kind of look back at ISE and sort of dissect it. But on tonight's show, we kind of get to know Kris a little bit, introduce him for our audience who maybe isn't familiar with what he does or what Live Install is all about. And then we spend the rest of the time just chatting about ISE and what he's looking for out of the show. And to your point, it's a really interesting show to watch, and always interested to kind of keep an eye on some of those trends that are going on overseas, because we really here in the U.S., can kind of get focused on what we're doing here, and we forget that really home technology and the connected home and smart home are kind of these worldwide phenomenons now, and have really taken off all over the place. So it's a really great time of the year to be reminded of that, and just keep an eye on what's going on what's happening elsewhere.
Yep, definitely. So I'm speaking of trade shows, I kind of want to loop back to CES and talk a little bit about something that came up we should have mentioned it on last week's show, but we forgot. And that's this article you wrote about the UHD TV State of the Union. It's over on our blog, so HomeTech.fm/blog, and you'd be able to find it there. But man, this is excellent. You went through and broke down all the major players, what they're doing, what technologies they're showing off, and how each player fits into the TV scene. Man, this is awesome stuff.
Yeah, thank you so much. I enjoyed writing it. Definitely would encourage people to go check that out. I tried to avoid getting into too much in terms of like deep dives on part numbers and spec sheet. You can find all that on the spec sheets. What I really tried to do with the article was sort of dissect where TV is going in 2016, what some of the big trends are. If you're in the market for a TV, or if you're maybe a home technology professional who's just looking to kind of get a quick brief or a primer on what some of the key trends are, and more importantly, how some of the big manufacturers fit into that picture and what they're doing and what they're embracing and kind of what each one of them is pushing. That was sort of the angle of the article I took. So really looked at what I called kind of the big four, Samsung, Sony, Panasonic, and LG, and just sort of dissected what each of them is doing and what we saw at CES, which is traditionally a big show for TV makers to kind of unveil things, and this year was no exception. So really enjoyed putting that article together and hope people go check that out and definitely let me know what you think. You can either leave a comment over there or shoot us a tweet at HomeTech Podcast.
Yep, yeah, and we'll put the link to that. It's a little bit harder to find in the blog if you listen to this, later on in the future, and we have a couple of posts in between here and there. So we'll put a link to it in our show notes, which will be at HomeTech.fm/97. This is the 97th show. So yeah, we'll make sure that those links get in there, man. Good job on that article. I just wanted to call you out because
appreciate that.
Speaking of TVs, I'm going to need a big TV evidently for this week. Because there's this little game going on, and I need a 65-inch TV, man. Which one should I get?
Oh, well, that's a tough choice, but big game coming up. Super Bowl L, right? Super Bowl.
Yes, I'm not calling it 50. It's Super Bowl L.
Which is funny for people who don't know. The Roman numeral for 50 is the letter L, and always traditionally the NFL has used Roman numerals for the games, and they decided to move away from that this year for Super Bowl 50, I guess for semi-obvious reasons. But I think here on the show, we're gonna call it Super Bowl L, and of course the loss is going to be for Carolina, right? Because we're here at Home Tech, we're pulling for those Broncos.
Oh wow, man! Yeah, there you go. I'm going to come back and the website's going to be orange.
Yeah, orange and blue. That's not a bad idea.
Oh man, that's funny. So one thing I ran across that was really cool, you'll be able to, CBS is actually streaming the Super Bowl this year for free. So you could actually, if you don't have a 65-inch TV yet, you'd be able to watch it on like an iPhone or an iPad or Android. There are a number of different devices that you could watch it on portable, but it also, since they're streaming it, you can watch it on a computer, Apple TV, Chromecast, Roku, Windows 10, or even your Xbox One. This is, I don't know if this is a first, but this seems pretty big to me.
Yeah, I would hazard a guess that it is. I mean, this seemed like a very big story to me. Streaming content is really something we've been covering, and I've been watching a lot closer lately, just kind of keeping an eye on it. And I really do think that 2016 is going to be a big year where we're going to start seeing those walls come down between traditional kind of linear TV programming and over-the-top kind of app-based content. Those have really traditionally been two very discrete offerings, and I think we're going to continue to kind of see those walls come down, and this I think is a perfect example of that. I mean, the fact that they have decided to stream it, I think is great. I don't know how many people will take advantage of it relative to how many are going to watch it on traditional TV, but I think it just really does speak to kind of the future, and all of these networks and content providers are really going to have to experiment a little bit and figure out what works for the business case and the economics of it. But I think it's great. I know that my wife may have to take advantage of it. Sometimes our daughter needs to go down for a nap. And if that happens during game time, she'll be able to kind of sit and rock with our daughter and maybe watch the game on her phone. That'd be great. I mean, it's the Super Bowl, right? So I think she'll want to tune in. She's a fellow Broncos fan.
So you're not going to be watching it on your phone? I
will be watching on the TV.
Well, I like this idea of streaming, right? Because it seems like it's cool, but I'm wondering. To me, like that's a point of failure. Like, and I hate to say it. I'm not hate to say it, but this is where we are right now. Like the computer servers and networks and everything, they go down. Like they're not as reliable as over-the-air broadcast or cable television is, right?
Right.
So I think we're still really dependent on those two particular things. They work. They don't fail. And maybe you'll have a cable outage in your neighborhood. Hopefully not on Super Bowl Sunday, but you'll have a cable outage from time to time, and then you could always switch back and go over the air with an antenna and get an HD picture as well. So I kind of worry about this. I know this is this is good. This has got to be a huge initiative for them to do. I mean, because there's millions of people that watch the Super Bowl in the States. And I think it's the biggest sporting event that we have. So this has got to be huge for them. And I'm just kind of curious to see how well it goes for them.
Yeah, no, I think you make a fair point there about the reliability, but I think the people that'll really benefit from this are the cord cutters who don't have any sort of other option and traditionally wouldn't have had any way to really watch the game at all, other than maybe on some really garbage CD, like, pirated site where you can go and kind of get a really low quality version of it. Now, this is a legitimate way to watch it, and I think it opens up options for people. And I think your points are valid about the reliability and maybe the quality of it, but at the same time, it's great that they'll at least have that option. There was one other story that we wanted to cover before we jump into our conversation here with Kris Gamble, and it relates to this, and it's actually a new offering from Roku. Sort of expanding their plans apparently. And Seth, I didn't realize this, but they've already been working with leasing kind of rebranded streamers for the article site's UK Sky TV. And so it's a Roku box, but they basically use it to tap into their Now IPTV service. But it looks like Roku is actually now going to expand those plans and put a box out there that integrates a television tuner alongside their over the top app. So I think that's a pretty cool deal. And once again, just sort of speaks to sort of this evolution in content that we're watching going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is really cool. We talked about, you talked a minute ago about cutting the cord. Well, you still do have that option of hooking up rabbit ears for your flat panel TV and getting, without the cord, getting over the air broadcast of CBS, which will be doing the Super Bowl. But this is another way. Well, we talked last week about Apple TV and the channels, the little channels app that they had. Mm-hmm. This is kind of the same idea, except probably a whole lot less expensive to implement, since the tuner is built into the Roku box itself. So I'm really excited about something like this. This is an interesting little device, and I'm sure it's going to be inexpensive. TiVo has a similar device, TiVo Romeo OTA, which is over the air. I want to say it's maybe $100 to $200, and you still have to pay every month for the TiVo service. But it is another way that you can get very similar features to what Roku will be doing here in the future. But I'm curious. This looks really cool. I can't wait to see what they do with it, and I'm a big fan of Roku. It's an interesting company. So, like I said, really curious to see when it comes out and how well it does.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll include a link to that in the show notes. Again, those are at HomeTech.fm/97. So I think without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our interview here with Kris Gamble. Once again, Kris is of the Live Install community, and we look forward to kind of sharing our conversation with him all about what Live Install is, sort of introducing him to you, our audience, and of course, spending the rest of the time kind of talking about ISE and what he's looking forward to seeing out there. So let's go ahead and jump in. We are excited to welcome Kris to the show. Kris, how are you?
I'm very good, Jason. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you on, and we're really we're excited to kind of unveil this partnership. I think that Seth and I have both been big fans of what you've been doing with Live Install over the last couple of years, and we've really sort of had a loose affiliation with you guys and have been kind of keeping that communication line open on social media, mostly Twitter and all that. But we're excited to kind of formalize that a little bit and make you a regular part of the show. So for any of our listeners who, may not be familiar with you and what, your Live Install and what you're all about, why don't you just start out giving our listeners a brief introduction about yourself and then about Live Install as well.
Yeah, thanks for that overview there. My business is called Customized. I'm the owner and technical director of the business. That's my day job. That's my 9 till 5, pays the bills. In the background, I also run a Twitter-based community of installers of home technology. And we are using hashtag Live Install as the tool that allows us to network. And it's something that's grown from a dozen installers to must be over 1,000 users of the hashtag every day, every week, every year. So it's something that does take up some time, but it's a lot of fun to be involved in.
Yeah, definitely. I would have to imagine it would be definitely well into the thousands from what I've seen. It seems like a very active hashtag and really a lot of great dialogue going on there. I think sort of the genesis of it and some of the more prevalent tweets that I've seen have really had to do with people kind of tweeting out pictures of doing some of the installations and cool home technology stuff that they're working with. Was that sort of the genesis? I mean, take us back to when you really first started that hashtag and really what was the idea and what do you think made it kind of catch on with people?
Yeah, my own company sent out the first hashtag live install tweet, and the reason I started using a regular hashtag in our social media posts was I'd seen, the use of hashtags on television programs, radio shows, press advertising, and I thought, well, why don't I create my own, thinking that it would just be for my business. Luckily, I kept it quite generic, so it wasn't called customized install, which would have been a bit of a big full stop. But keeping it generic, it appealed to other businesses, and a few of the early adopters reached out, asked for the use of it, which, was quite exciting that it drew a small amount of attention. And like I say, it snowballed from there. Very quickly, in the first few months, we had 50, 60, 70 installers in the UK primarily, and I would say it does have a strong core in the UK. I think what we've noticed is we've actually got install businesses on both supply chain and installation side using it as an efficient way to spread the news about their business.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about it is that I see both like installs. I think you retweet a lot of installs. You see people out in the field, and it could be anything from electrical to, I guess you guys call them aerials over there. We call them antennas over here. To full AV systems and lighting control. It's really good on that side. And then also you'll retweet or you'll tweet out and see some product like some keypads or home automation controllers. I mean, it's a really cool community to just kind of sit back and kind of watch what they're doing every day.
Yeah, the diversity of the images is the key to it all. It shows the spectrum of home technology installation. I like to encourage the use of images from start to finish on projects to show, hopefully, your homeowner followers that there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of design, a lot of engineering, a lot of attention to detail involved in our industry, but also shows the diversity of trades that are involved, from the aerial installers, the electrical contractors, right through. And we should be encouraging the use of architects, builders, other trades that are starting to touch technology, whether it's the plumber using the heating controls or collaborating with a technology company. So I think that's where I would like to push it in that direction, that it becomes not a hashtag for home technology, but a hashtag for construction.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I was just thinking, like, it wouldn't be good for plumbers to be posting live install when they're just fitting in the toilets. but yeah. If it's a fancy toilet, I guess that would be kind of cool to see too. I'm not sure. You kind of touched on it briefly there. What do you think the core mission of live install is these days?
It's really to promote the industry and promote an industry that's very much under the radar of homeowners, under the radar of building designers and construction professionals who maybe don't realize that there's a whole channel set up ready to support their first steps and hopefully their big steps into home technology. It's really the start, and we felt like there's been a lot of false starts, but there's something about 2015, 16, 17, there's some real progress being made, and people like CEDIA are working harder than ever to reach out to construction professionals in the UK, and I can really only give my experiences based on the UK. But there's a big wave, which we've all talked about it coming for a long time, but this just feels much bigger than before.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think, and Seth and I have talked about that numerous times on our show, and just sort of feeling like really the last couple of years have represented a real kind of a breakout in the smart home and home technology, and just a general awareness that seems to be growing. And that's been one of my favorite parts about kind of following what you guys are doing with Live Install and keeping an eye on that, is sort of watching the parallels and also the differences between what's happening here in the States and then what's happening over in the UK and elsewhere. And obviously, I think the Live Install community has branched out, and I know there's involvement on the Twitter aspect from the United States now, but primarily it's been a UK thing, I think, traditionally. And I think it's been really interesting to me to kind of see those parallels and, again, the differences about how things are sort of evolving and transpiring in the UK versus here stateside. Talk about, Kris, because you and I have talked about this before, and I think it's very interesting. Our listeners would like to hear about it because, this whole thing, like we've talked about, really started with just a simple kind of social media, like a company promotion, really. You were just kind of trying to be active, and it's really kind of grown and evolved into something different. And I know that you've told me about some of the kind of the live, I think, in-person type training events, if I'm recalling correctly. I mean, you're sort of reaching beyond social media now and kind of bringing people together in person, correct?
Yeah, it was always a plan from the start. When we started to build up some numbers, it was, let's try and go offline and meet face-to-face, whether it's regional events, whether it's combining it with national events where there's already a gathering of our industry. Let's do some evening events there, or we've gone to the extent of being exhibitors at these events, and some of the organizers of these shows have been really good with myself and offering space at the show and encouraging our presence at the show, because installers are their customers, and we appear to have struck a chord with them very early on. I'm talking the same language, so that's been the big catalyst for the growth, is the opinions, the views, whether they're sometimes positive, sometimes negative, because I do like to be sometimes a bit abrasive. It's come from one of our own, which I think has been refreshing, and it's not come from a magazine or a salesperson. So the events, I would say they've tailed off a bit, and it's probably due to the workload of my own business. But we've tried to maintain the networking through a platform we use called Yammer, which is part of the Microsoft group. Great platform. It's like our own private intranet for installation professionals, and I know both of you guys are members of it. And that's a really active channel. We have great conversation from technical to business to even social, a bit of humor in there. It's a place where people can speak to like-minded people, small business owners, because a lot of us run very small businesses, and we don't often have people within our businesses to discuss the management of them. So it's been great to provide that platform, and it's one that I do try and commit a lot of time to. When we're offline and at events, I make time to meet with members of the Live Install community, try and encourage social events like at ISE coming up. We'll try and do a beer call where we can gather and just relax and talk about how's business. Maybe not go too technical.
Definitely. Yeah, well, I think that's great. And so speaking of ISE, I mean, that transitions perfectly here. And we wanted to, we've been talking about kind of making you a regular sort of featured guest on the show here for a while. And we thought this would be a great time to initially do that, because as we sit here and record this episode, ISE is roughly a week away. And so it's right around the corner. And it's a big show. We're very excited always to keep an eye on that. It's one that I have never attended in person. I really hope to someday. For anyone who doesn't know, ISE is literally the combination of CEDIA and Infocom. So those two trade shows, which you may be familiar with here stateside, have combined forces and do one big show over in Amsterdam every year. And looks like quite the spectacle. And Kris, I know you'll be attending this year, and you have kindly agreed to kind of be our on location eyes and ears for ISE. And I know you're going to be busy out there, but you're going to try to just sort of keep an eye on things from the home tech perspective. And we look forward to having you on again in a couple of weeks to wrap up the show and give our thoughts. But for tonight, let's spend the rest of our conversation sort of looking forward to ISE. And I want to pick your brain a little bit about some of the things that you're looking forward to seeing, some of the broad kind of themes and products that you're going to be checking out while you're at the show. But before we dive in to some of those details, let's just talk about some of the logistics. I know it's a big show. So when are you heading out there? What's kind of your high level plan when you get out to the show?
Yeah, ISE this year is the first time they're going to have over 4 days, which will be, it just shows you the size of the event for a start. I'm only going to try and be there for 2 days, and I'm going to split myself 50-50 between training and walking the show floor. I'm going to travel out the night before on the 9th, which is a Tuesday, to a full day of CDA training on the 10th. The course I'm going to be doing is the CPD course, which enables my business to present to architects who are members of the Royal Institute of British Architects. We can provide them with a presentation on how to design smart homes or the connected home. And that will take a full day, but it's very worthwhile for my business. And then on the 11th, on the Thursday, I will be there when the doors open till they chuck me out. And I have a long list of exhibitors that I want to get through. Some existing suppliers and some are new suppliers that we'd like to work with this year and going forwards.
Very cool. So what are you? This is kind of, we do this every show that's coming up. We've done it for ISE, we've done it for CES, we've done it for CEDIA. What are you looking for? What are the big topics you're going to kind of keep an eye on when you walk through the doors there for the trade show portion?
Well, it will be definitely tailored to my own business focuses, and we primarily focus on home automation, and so we'll be looking at control systems, some well-known, Crestron, Control 4, but also some that maybe not so well-known to your listeners, manufacturers that are within the KNX ecosystem space. A brand we use a lot is HDL Bass Pro. We'll be looking at what's new from them. So that will be my main focus. Get what's new from the products, the brands that we already use, and what brands should I be looking at to either step my installations up a level in terms of price category and value type, property type, but also I'm keen to find something that might fit a lower price point for my company, which might be a developer-friendly system. The one that I'm honing in on most is one by ABB, which is a huge business, electrical business, automation business. But they have a new system called Free at Home, which has started to make some progress in Germany, where ABB is a huge brand. In the UK, they're starting to make some breakthrough with installers, mainly from an electrical background. It's a single brand ecosystem. It will do everything from the door entry into your lighting panels. It will control your shades. It will work with iOS and Android apps. It's a nice little home control system which doesn't carry the huge price tag of a KNX system, of a Crestron or a Control 4 system. And I think that might be very appealing to developers. And that's a market that my own business is looking to attack in 2017.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking at the website. Cool stuff. Sorry, Jason, go ahead.
Oh, no. Yeah, definitely. I looked at, took a peek at that as well when you had sent over some of your notes, and it looks very intriguing. And I'm definitely curious to hear your thoughts after the show on that one. I know we don't want to dive into like too much detail. I'm sure you're going to be covering a ton of ground out there, but I know specifically one of the other things you had mentioned to me kind of prior to the show is that you'll be evaluating some network and Wi-Fi type of options out there. Tell us about that. I mean, what are you currently doing, and what are you kind of looking to possibly improve or diversify on sort of your networking tool belt?
Yeah, my own technical background is from telecommunications, military telecoms and commercial telecoms. Obviously, a lot of the systems that are used in those applications are not always relevant to the residential market. So to date, we've always put a big effort into our structured cabling, Cat6, Cat6A wiring. We like to hardwire, obviously, as much as we can in the property. And then for our wireless network, we have been using Ubiquiti Unify products. And I've had a lot of success with them, and it's led into us using their network switches, sometimes their IP telephones, their IP CCTV. But we're finding that it does have its limitations. And by speaking to other installers, we're finding that they are using other brands like Luxol, Package, even the well-known brands like Cisco. So I'm going to look closer at Luxol and Package at ISE. I don't think Ruckus are there, but if they are, I'll find them. Because I just want to look for something that's just that level above. I feel Unify hits the price point for 80% of our projects. But I'm going to look a little bit further into what I could offer for larger residential and light commercial projects for networking.
Well, I can. We're recording this a little early. I may have some insider knowledge, but I think there'll be some big news. I kind of feel some big news coming from ISE in the network world. So just kind of you'll see it. keep your eye on that space.
Awesome. Well, hey, I know also we go out to these shows and we're really, we're always looking at things kind of from a technical perspective, and we're looking at sort of products and different companies and offerings that can enhance what we're able to go out and provide for our clients. But I also know that a big part of these shows is kind of what we can do from a business perspective. And you're sort of looking at B2B type solutions, maybe software solutions to help you run your company. And I know a big part of our audience is professional integrators. And I think that portion of our audience would be interested to hear, if there's anything that you're going out there to take a particular look at from kind of a software and process side in terms of how you run your business. Is there anything kind of on that front that you're looking for in particular?
Yeah, we're looking to continue our outsourcing of services, and it's something we do already with our lighting designs are done with a company that we've worked closely with now for just over a year. We also use preferred partners for our satellite and aerial installations, our electrical work. My own business, we don't claim to be, master of all trades. We align ourselves with very, very good partners, and we position ourselves as more of the project manager and specifier. The services that I'm looking to plug some gaps in is the design of the documentation for the project, the design of the systems, getting that information onto industry standard drawings and presenting it so that it's clear to all the construction professionals on projects. There is a new company coming out of the UK called Design Flow, which we're going to try and spend some time with them, trying to get an appointment with them at the moment. But also we're looking at how can we streamline our systems for getting quotations out to new customers, project managing our installations better, and communicating better with other trades involved. So we're also going to be making some time to sit with JetBuilt, which is a software tool coming out of the US, and Project Q, which is a UK-based company who both these companies are offering very similar services. They have a um, great user interface, great back catalogue of products. They're working hard to get as many as the well-known brands into their databases, so that it's easy for you to build quotations and then manage your projects, your stock, your assets.
Yeah, I've been looking at Jet Built for a while too. That looks like a really cool idea and something our industry needs more than anything right now. There has been zero standardization on database and back-end infrastructure. There have been attempts, but nothing has really. I think what's out there is a little more complicated than it actually should be. So yeah, I'm looking excitedly towards whatever you come back with on that for sure. Kind of want to take a step back and kind of look at ISE as how it fits in at a higher level. We've seen over the years a focus, at least from my perspective here in the States, where major announcements sometimes hit ISE instead of CEDIA. And CEDIA just becomes kind of a trade show here in the U.S. with not many technology announcements. Do you think that ISE has become more important for the industry than CEDIA, or I don't know. I'd just like to get your feelings on this. When you attend the show, are you looking for those big event announcements? Are you looking for those big announcements and events, or do you kind of get the same feeling around CEDIA time too?
I think one of the advantages for the ISE event is it's at the start of the year, and I think you have a lot of visitors there starting the year on the right foot, and they have that thirst for new products, knowledge, and they have high hopes for the year ahead. So I think the time of year is good. What the biggest advantage, and it was drawn to at the start, was its Infocom and CEDIA under one roof. We shouldn't underestimate the amount of businesses that work in both spaces of commercial and residential technology installation. The CEDIA Expo is very focused on the residential, obviously, being the CEDIA show. So I think I would say, yeah, ISE is a more important show because it's the audience it attracts. I've not been to CEDIA. I would like to go. We previously had a CEDIA show held in London, which stopped maybe 5-6 years ago now. So it's a shame that there isn't a CEDIA exclusive show in Europe. But we've got the advantage of ISE, where we can see technologies coming. What's happening in the commercial space. Are we going to see this in the residential space? It's really great to see what's happening that side of the fence as well.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine that it's got to be quite the spectacle to see that all under one roof. And I think you make a great point about not underestimating the number of companies in our business that do both residential and commercial. So I think it'd be a great show to attend. And it's a little bit tough to make an apples to apples comparison of ISE versus CEDIA and which one is, more important. But I do think it's a good question, and it's one that's worth thinking about, because it really, like we were talking about earlier, I feel like home technology and the smart home is really taken a foothold all over the world. And a lot of times in the United States, we kind of think about things here and tend to get a little bit of tunnel vision. So it's worth considering that ISE has become a really big deal. And it is a show, like Seth alluded to, where some people will actually kind of hold their cards close to the vest and wait for ISE to really make some big announcements. And hopefully that's the case this year. It's always an exciting show to watch, and really looking forward to having you out there to kind of cover the show for us. We've only got just a couple minutes left here, and we're going to let you go. So I just want to kind of ask you, I guess, from a personal perspective, we've talked a lot about the business and the training that you're going to do out there, but I know also a big part of going to these shows is sort of that social aspect and catching up with friends and some of the networking events. So just on a personal level, I mean, what's kind of your favorite part about going out to ISE?
Well, Amsterdam is a great city to visit. It's quite a notorious city for its nightlife. So we'll be taking full advantage of that. There's a couple of live install gatherings. which will be centering around beer and monkey nuts, which seems to be in this theme that's stuck from last year. People are asking if we're going to the same place for a drinks meetup. So the personal side of it's great, and you can really let your hair down and not have to talk about the business as much, and talk about some personal things. I've got to become great friends with members of the Live Install community. So just a chance to catch up with them outside of office hours, really.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that sounds like a good time. I have to admit that I haven't ever heard the term monkey nuts before. Seth, have you heard that one?
No.
That's good. Kris,
I was Googling it, but it didn't come up very.
You're bringing some international flavor to the show. I like it. Tell us about that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think we'll leave that to social media. We'll do some live tweets from the pub or the bar. So it's quite a funky pub that we're going to go to. You pull your own beer. There's no waitress. There's no table service. They just give you a glass as you walk in the door, and the beer pumps are on.
Sounds like my kind of place.
Yeah, no kidding. You're really making me want to go to this.
Yeah, no kidding. Awesome. Well, Kris, we're going to let you go. We appreciate you joining us tonight. Like I said, we're going to have you on again in a couple of weeks to do sort of a look back at the show and kind of get your thoughts on it after the fact and what you were able to learn and see out there. And we look forward to sharing that with our listeners. So again, want to thank you for coming on. And why don't you just tell our listeners again, for those of them in the audience who are just kind of getting familiar with Live Install or maybe hearing about it for the first time, what would be the best way for them to kind of reach out and connect with you or get involved in that community if they're so inclined?
Yeah, Twitter is definitely the best way to reach out to us. The Twitter handle is @LiveInstall. The hashtag is #LiveInstall. We also have a website that has some good blogs, a little bit of background on Live Install, and that's liveinstall.network.
Great. Well, with that, we'll let you go, Kris. Really hope you have a great time out at ISE, and we look forward to connecting with you again in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Yep. Thanks, Kris. Well, that includes our segment with Kris Gamble. Can't wait to see what he comes up with at ISE. And Jason, you and I will be sitting back and kind of watching what goes on at ISE this week. And we'll report back next week with all of our findings and, of course, the box.
I look forward to both.
Yep, definitely. So I just want to remind everybody, tweet shoutouts, we're still doing those. So if you got something to say, just reach out to us at HomeTech Podcast on Twitter. We'll read your tweets there on the air, as they say, and hopefully respond to them with meaningful conversation. You can also check out the email list over at HomeTech.fm on the right-hand side. Sign up for that, and Jason's been doing a great job sending out some stories that we don't actually talk about here on the show to the email list. Some pretty interesting ones went out this week.
Yeah, definitely trying to ramp that up. Once again, I would encourage people to go sign up, again, just on the right-hand side there at HomeTech.fm. And the goal with that is just sort of put out kind of a weekly newsletter sort of thing where we talk about some of the big stories that are taking place in home technology that week, and of course try to add some of our unique commentary and a little bit of context, and that'll be exclusive content, so we won't be putting that up on the website or anywhere else. And I really hope that you'll take a minute to go over there and sign up for the email list. We would love to have you. So with that, we'll wrap up the show. Seth, I look forward to connecting with you again next week, and hopefully we'll find out what's in the box.
Yep, we'll find out for sure.
All right, man. Have a great week. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Have a good one.